data is so different today and continues to evolve, even what the heck's it going to look like in 72 years? I think I know that we've had these conversations just as we're preparing for this. That makes a lot of sense. Yeah, Dan, I'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I hope we'll circle back too, and because there's another kind of related question, which is essentially like, how do looking at these things back then shape our sense of what data is today? And I hope we can talk about that.
Yeah, sure.
But this is something this question is one that I think a lot about.
Mm-hmm.
The census in 2010, 2020 is digital. It's born digital,
Mm-hmm.
or even when it's put on paper, it's then scanned in and it's a digital record kept. There are no paper or microfilm records being kept for these recent censuses.
Mm-hmm.
And we have this vision, the sense that, the future is going to be full of so many records. And in fact, that's actually a lot like the 20th century. Like 20th century historians already have this enormous difficulty of there actually being already way too many records for us to constantly work through.
Yeah.
Because once people could type and like mimeograph things, and you start having state-run archives, we just have so many records that like the people who are doing 20th century history have just, are already at just the tip of the iceberg.
Okay.
Telling the story about the census, for the 1940 alone, like one division of the Census Bureau itself would often have like 14 gigantic archival boxes. And then there's many, many different divisions, right? So like for me to do the story already, I'm like just barely able to touch the tips of what's happening here. So it could be, that we're in the future going to face the same problem to an even greater degree. But there's a slightly more troubling possible future, which is that we might actually have a lot less material. If it depends on how sanguine we are about the efforts at digital preservation.
Mm-hmm.
Like the question is, how good will we be at finding mechanisms to make sure that digital records produced in 1998 are still legible in 2098?
Yeah.
Thinking about like, I have papers that I wrote in high school or college on Nisus Writer, which was like a word processor that I thought was really cool at that time. And I'm sure that it's entirely impossible to read these things these days, right? And or I've got, stuff on zip disks that who knows if that would ever be. I'd have to like find somebody with a zip drive somewhere that was still functioning. Their archivists are working on this stuff. And so if we have faith in the government and we know they're working on this, then probably the census records will still exist 100 years from now.
Mm-hmm.
I hope that they will.
Yeah.
But I get a little bit nervous about it just because I don't understand that system.
Now you've made me a little bit more scared because I would have assumed it was something they had under wraps.
No, we assume that everything's being perfectly cataloged today and it's living on a digital shelf, and that's just not true. It's like you've got a messy room of a bunch of data, and we just keep piling more into it, and we think that means it's organized. That, and I think that's what you're really getting to. And it's in weird shapes, files, formats. And in the past, it was a piece of paper. Everybody could see that piece of paper. In 50 years, that .docx file or that .pdf, is that still a thing? Or do we have to figure out ways to convert it? And then where the heck was it in the first place? No, I've never thought of that. I mean, to me, this is, you're right. It is a little bit on the scary side, but also you think about, we are digitally cataloging ourselves every day. And it's so different.
And the Census Bureau is the best case, probably, because indeed, the Census Bureau working with the National Archives, you've got whole teams of professionals funded by a government and a state, and their responsibility, because they're working for the government and working for the people, is to actually make sure that every single person's record is faithfully kept,
Mm-hmm.
that it's preserved in confidentiality, not misused, and then will be available in the future. Whereas, like, if you want to figure out, like, what is Meta going to do with our data?
Oh,
I mean, right. Not only might we be concerned very reasonably about how those records might be being used today to shape our lives, but again, if our premise is that all the ways in which we're recording our lives daily are going to be available to us 100 years from now, that's putting a lot of faith in the idea that a company whose whose like goal is to sell ads today is going to spend any amount of time and energy preserving our records in a usable format for 100 years from the future.